and a bit later, the value of the nectar, and learns to predict the nectar value of that flower the next time the bee encounters it. The delay is important because the key is prediction rather than a simple association. This is also the central core of temporal difference learning, which entails learning a sequence of decisions leading to a goal. All right, no, I guess I'm not ready to read this. This explains everything. So this is this chapter I was going to read with you guys for the first time, then didn't work out. So I was reading it on my own. So I'll say two things before you read it. Maybe, I think three things actually. The first is that I don't understand the first half of this chapter. The second half feels familiar, but maybe I basically understand nothing important in this chapter. I have no idea, because I definitely know there's some things I don't understand. And I'm lucky, because of course there are some times when I read things and think I fully understand. Nothing shocks me in it, but in reality, an external observer may know that in fact I actually didn't understand. But that's the thing about the brain, is that it's not super reliable. So in this chapter, Nature is Cleverer Than We Are, by Terrence J. Sejnowski. He always thinks he's in trouble. No, I'm trying to train him to do that on command. Okay. One thing I don't understand this chapter. Second thing, my complaint of the chapter, if I do understand it, well, anyway, is my feeling that he's putting the mind, the human mind, on a pedestal that it hasn't deserved in maybe 12,000 years, since society dramatically changed with agriculture and sedentary communities. Or maybe, if we're being a little bit nicer, in like 5,000 years or 6,000 years, since we had the written word, and now all of a sudden we are having these like fake ideas that don't make any sense, because we're able to like put references to feelings together in like unique ways and feel like we understand what we're saying and what we're talking about. Human mind is an absolutely incredible thing, but society has greatly outpaced it. And then the third thing is, I think it was something that I really like about this chapter, which is I don't remember what I liked about this chapter. The last thing I'll say is that, for instance, at one point, it's 3.5 pages. At one point, he's going to say it extracts, like this learning process, extracts what is essential from these experiences, life experiences. And that, to me, is too presumptive, especially with the great change in environment we had, between 12 and 2,000 years ago. I mean, and then with the Industrial Revolution, a major change in society function and lifestyle, stuff like that. So I don't think that it's justified to say that this learning process that he describes actually extracts what is in today's world essential from the experiences. And I just don't want you to walk away from this paragraph thinking, yeah, okay, just trust my intuition. I would have said, yeah, if it was 100,000 years ago, but no, not now. Intuition didn't evolve as quickly as our cultures did. Okay, so, all right, here we go. Nature is Cleverer Than We Are. Terrence J. Sejnowski, computational neuroscientist, the Francis Crick Professor at the Salk Institute, and a co-author of The Computational Brain with Patricia S. Churchland. We have the clear impression that our deliberative mind makes the most important decisions in our life. What work we do, where we live, whom we marry. But contrary to this belief, the biological evidence points toward a decision process in an ancient brain system called the basal ganglia, brain circuits that consciousness cannot access. Nonetheless, the mind dutifully makes up plausible explanations for the decisions. The scientific trail that led to this conclusion began with honeybees. Worker bees forage the spring fields for nectar, which they identify with the color, fragrance, and shape of a flower. The learning circuit in the bee brain converges on VUM-MX1, a single neuron that receives the sensory input and, a bit later, the value of the nectar, and learns to predict the nectar value of that flower the next time the bee encounters it. The delay is important because the key is prediction rather than a simple association. This is also the central core of temporal difference, TD, temporal difference learning, which entails learning a sequence of decisions leading to a goal and is particularly effective in uncertain environments like the world we live in. Buried deep in your midbrain, maybe point a little bit further up. There's a small collection of neurons found in our earliest vertebrate ancestors and projecting throughout the cortical mantle and basal ganglia that are important for decision making. These neurons release a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which has a powerful influence on our behavior. Dopamine has been called a reward molecule, but more important than reward itself is the ability of these neurons to predict reward. If I had that job, how happy would I be? Dopamine neurons, which are central to motivation, implement TD, temporal difference, learning just as VUM-MX1 does. This is the last time I'm going to tell you what the acronym stands for. Temporal difference, TD learning, solves the problem of finding the shortest path to a goal. It's an online algorithm because it learns by exploring and discovers the value of intermediate decisions in reaching the goal. It does this by creating an internal value function which can be used to predict the consequences of actions. Dopamine neurons evaluate the current state of the entire cortex and inform the brain about the best course of action from the current state. In many cases, the best course of action is a guess, but because guesses can be improved, TD learning creates over time a value function of oracular powers. Dopamine may be the source of the gut feeling you sometimes experience, the stuff that intuition is made from. When you're considering various options, prospective brain circuits evaluate each scenario, and the transient level of dopamine registers the predicted value of each decision. The level of dopamine is also related to your level of motivation. So not only will a high level of dopamine indicate a high expected reward, but you will also have a higher level of motivation to pursue it. This is quite literally the case in the motor system where a high tonic dopamine level produces faster movements. The addictive powers of cocaine and amphetamines is a consequence of increased dopamine activity, hijacking the brain's internal motivation system. Reduced levels of dopamine lead to anhedonia, an inability to experience pleasure, and the loss of dopamine neurons results in Parkinson's disease, an inability to initiate actions and thoughts. TD learning is powerful because it combines information about value along many different dimensions, in effect comparing apples and oranges in achieving distant goals. This is important because rational decision-making is very difficult when there are many variables and unknowns. Having an internal system that quickly delivers good guesses is a great advantage, and may make the difference between life and death when a quick decision is needed. TD learning depends on the sum of your life experiences. It extracts what is essential from these experiences long after the details of the individual experiences are no longer remembered. TD learning also explains many of the experiments performed by psychologists who trained rat and pigeons in simple tasks. Reinforcement learning algorithms have traditionally been considered too weak to explain complex behaviors because the feedback from the environment is minimal. Nonetheless, reinforcement learning is universal among nearly all species and is responsible for some of the most complex forms of sensory-motor coordination, such as piano playing and speech. Reinforcement learning has been honed by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. It has served countless species well, particularly our own. How complex a problem can TD learning solve? TD Gammon is a computer program that learned how to play backgammon by playing itself. The difficulty with this approach is that the reward comes only at the end of the game, so it's not clear which were the good moves that led to the win. TD Gammon started out with no knowledge of the game except for the rules. By playing itself many times and applying TD learning to create a value function to evaluate game positions, TD Gammon climbed from beginner to expert level, along the way picking up subtle strategies similar to the ones that humans use. After playing itself a million times, it reached championship level and was discovering new positional play that astonished human experts. Similar approaches to the game of Go have achieved impressive levels of performance and are on track to reach professional levels. When there's a combinatorial explosion of possible outcomes, selective pruning is helpful. Pruning is when you clean up the unneeded stuff. When there's a combinatorial explosion of possible outcomes, selective pruning is helpful. Attention and working memory allow us to focus on most of the important parts of a problem. Reinforcement learning is also supercharged by our declarative memory system, which tracks unique objects and events. When large brains evolved in primates, the increased memory capacity greatly enhanced their ability to make complex decisions, leading to longer sequences of actions to achieve goals. We are the only species to create an educational system and to consign ourselves to years of instruction and tests. Delayed gratification can extend into the distant future, in some cases into an imagined afterlife, a tribute to the power of dopamine to control behavior. At the beginning of the cognitive revolution in the 1960s, the brightest minds could not imagine that reinforcement learning could underlie intelligent behavior. Minds are not reliable. Nature is cleverer than we are. All right, so I remember the third thing. Last night I was having a conversation with someone about, I think I had said that I would rather entrust the big and important decisions to AI rather than to human minds, to artificial intelligence rather than to natural, at least terrestrial natural intelligence. And she said that we are the ones creating the AI, and so whatever beliefs we have, we are putting into the AI. And I tried to tell her that wasn't true. I tried to explain that, first of all, most of our behavior is driven by system one, the quick, reactive, and least reliable of the two systems, voices, programs, whatever. Whereas when we are programming, we're talking about sort of pretty smart people engaging system two as they develop these AI. So whereas Mother Nature just went like this with our genome, and that's how we got, what we are. Well, we're now using the best of us to sort of create the beginning of AI. And then it learns, and so it should be much smarter than us. But she was pretty stuck in the idea that our thoughts and our actions come from our beliefs, which I've talked about before. It's not how it happens. But what I wish I had said was there are already computers beating human players at chess. There have been for like 20 years. And now to learn about this TD Gammon, it was only given the rules, none of the strategy, etc. And then it just, what is that noise? And then it just kept playing itself and didn't even get immediate feedback during the game. It would just find out if it won or lost. And then doing this a whole bunch of times is now discovering new positional play that astonishes human experts. So that's the other thing I wanted to say, that's the other reason that I had liked it. I wanted to share that with you, that it is in line with what I was saying yesterday, I guess. I mean, it is, but I now just regret having said that I liked it. Anyway, but yeah, so that's why it sung. That's why it was singing to me. So all that's great. But I maintain, and because now I feel good about this. I think I understood everything I just read. Again, my brain has no way of knowing whether I understand everything I just read. The only measure it has is, was I confused by anything? I wasn't confused by anything, so I think that I understand it. I see some relationships between the different text ideas. So I'm thinking I see all of them. But like he says here, minds are not reliable. Nature is cleverer than we are. The thing is that nature needs a really, really, really long time. Okay? You need generations. You need environments to change, or for the species itself to change its environment, which doesn't happen often until the last several thousand years. So nature's clever when it has plenty of time, and the environment's changing slowly. When you're talking about a species that's, I don't even know, that it's taking, a dozen generations to like venture out, I don't want to say any numbers but I know that it's like impressive when you think about now. We can't imagine sort of undiscovered territory, right? Ever since the whole explorer thing happened, we have a culture of like exploring. There's a long, long time, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years where we were perfectly fine in our little circle environment. And then how about the domestication of animals? How long was it between each new animal was domesticated? Now that's unthinkable. We would think that we would just like domesticate every animal that we wanted to or could domesticate. And it wouldn't take thousands of years to domesticate a new one. So then all of a sudden, maybe thanks to language, maybe thanks to the time afforded by agriculture or the stability afforded by agriculture, whatever, we started moving really, really, really quickly. Then there was electricity. Whoa, now we're moving really fucking fast. The internet, oh my gosh. AI, oh my gosh. Until AI stops us, we're going to be moving at light speed now. But nature won't. So our environment, our expectations, our illusions about ourselves, they're all going like that. Changing like that. And nature's like, hold on. Y'all gave me like one generation. And 7 billion members of the species. I'm going to need at least 2 million more years I bet we would need to actually be able, for our brains, to be able to function in today's society in a natural and healthy way. Okay, I don't know. I'm not going to speak for nature. But I know she couldn't do it in several thousand years with this population. So I just, don't walk away from this thinking, oh, great, hundreds of millions of years of evolution, so I should just assume that my intuition, this dopamine, TD learning, or whatever, it's nailing it. Okay, it was not hundreds of millions of years with democracy. It wasn't hundreds of millions of years with social media. It wasn't hundreds of millions of years with nuclear weapons, with all these complex religious ideas, come on. Okay? Thanks, buddy. Oh, you're right, actually. You were absolutely right. I fucked up because TD learning, it's about learning. So, and I'm assuming, I pretend like this TD learning concept was an installation of information. But learning's learning. And the algorithm so I don't know what to think. I don't have a thought right now. On the one hand, no, there's only one hand that is extended out of all the millions of hands. There's only one hand right now. Lots of possibilities that I have not grasped yet. And will never grasp as well. But some of them I'll grasp. But, so on this hand, maybe it's possible either through a drug or therapy but we don't get enough information. That's the thing. Even with this TD learning, okay, right. So this TD learning isn't learning, right? One learning mechanism can go fast, maybe. One learning mechanism can go a lot faster. One learning mechanism is super slow, relative to the other ones. So as we were through our history, most of our history, and most of our existence, we have dealt with just a few questions. Is that poisonous? Where would some good prey be? How do I keep warm? Stuff like that. And then also, as another chapter was saying, starting in middle childhood, we would start learning whatever our profession thing was, our contribution, our role. And so we encountered over a longer period of time in our lives more instances of the same thing. For this TD learning system that we had, to be able to keep up. Okay. But now, I don't know how romance and dating have changed. So about learning from experiences with new partner. I assume we probably have more partners now, maybe. No idea, actually. Okay, so we won't use that then. Thank goodness, because if we do have more partners now, then what I was going to say wouldn't make any sense. But I lost my train of thought, actually. Oh, the TD learning, yeah. So now let's take, for example, voting. Okay? Democracy. So in an average lifetime, no. Does that even, so let's say you vote, what, 10 times, let's say, in an average lifetime. Is that enough instances for our TD learning to then, the 11th time, like, know how to vote intelligently? And, you know, and then I was saying that maybe that doesn't even matter because, well, that's not how votes are counted. You don't get 10 practice rounds and then, oh, I mean for federal, for presidential elections. Right? So obviously there are a lot. Okay, fair enough. So if someone is a good, responsible voter, votes in all the local elections and in the state and federal elections, okay, yeah, that what would you be voting every like 6 months or something? I don't know how that works for every referendum. I don't know. Could it be every 6 months? But if it were every 6 months, then TD learning, you know, could have enough instances to play with to develop a good instinct for who to vote for. But if you're voting, if you vote only in the presidential elections, I think you would have to vote in every presidential election for a millennium. For a long time. For the TD learning system that we evolved with to be able to do something with it. I think that's my point.